Hello, everyone. This is Woohee Kim, and I'm gonna present social culture factors in English learning context of South Korea. The reason I chose to have a close look on the context of South Korea is that I'm from South Korea, so I had an experience as an English learner, and for MATESOL course currently, I'm also experiencing as an language English teacher at the same time. So I found some interesting points regarding social cultural factors in learning English. So I will share some research on those social cultural factors in South Korea. And this is the contents. I would start from the language socialization theory on language, culture, and society. And I'm gonna introduce some social culture background of South Korea. And I would suggest some cases on language learners in Korea's their struggles and conflicts in learning English. And finally, I will like to conclude with the pedagogical implications. First, language socialization theory. We do know that we cannot separate language learning and the learning of normative ways of being and thinking. So when we learn language, it's not just the language, but we also learn and we face the target language normative ways of being and thinking, especially in second language learning. That's because language uses the manipulation of conventionally defined ways of saying things. So the language itself has the language shows how the language users conventionally defines of ways of saying things and how do they behave and the cultural backgrounds of users. And we can extend this as a social identity. So when we learn the second language, we are not as an individual, but we are a language learner in the larger social world. So when learners speak and practice the target language, they are not just exchanging information with others, but also they are constantly organizing and reorganizing their identities in the relationship with others. So their desire to learn target language may equate to their learner's own social identity. And language offers a tool through the person negotiates a sense of self within the different contexts at different times. It means that we learn second language, and the normal first language and the second language is different. We may conflict within an individual learner or between people, so that learner may constantly negotiate and reconstruct in the interactional context. So language use can affect learners' interactions with others and also their experience within the target language community and even their attitudes regarding the target language community and the identity. And so social identity and ethnicity are established and maintained through language. And we will see some examples of Korean language learners confront when learning English because of their culture and social difference between English and Korean. And before we proceed, I will introduce the social cultural background of South Korea. In South Korea, hierarchy in relationship matters. And the hierarchy is constructed among the age or gender or social position or the group that someone is engaged in. So as this picture shows, younger or little has a lower status, but someone who is older has higher status. In this point of view, so students has a lower position, and teacher or professor or someone who has authority has a higher position. And also a citizen who is a member has lower status, but government or public officer has higher status. And this hierarchy is reflected in Korean language. So Koreans use a lot of honorifics on the influence of Confucianism. And for example, you, which is for the second subject in English, we have so many different types of you in Korean. Also, Koreans convey ideas in indirect and implicit ways. In Korea, people consider direct and straightforward ways as to kind of rude. So we need to deliver message or convey ideas in indirect ways. Also, Koreans consider harmony and those relationship important. So we prefer to be in a group instead of being an individual and being independent. So relationship between members of group are really important. And those social cultural background is quite different from westernized culture, which is as represented in English. So when Korean learners learn English as a second language, they may have conflicts of those difference. We Korean learners have desired to be in the group of target language community, and Korean language learner also they aspire to learn English language communicative competence, but at the same time learners have a conflict that just adopting the norm in English may be considered as losing themselves, losing their social identity in the first language. And maybe it may seem as showing off and revealing their as their desire to others. So it may lose their social position in harmony or in group. And I'm gonna show you some examples of those inner struggles and conflicts of language learner in Korea. First of all, the use of titles in English. As I mentioned before, in Korean, there are a lot of honorifics in language, and we consider the hierarchy of social position as important. So if it's obvious that the social position differences is clear, we always use titles to show to respect and to show politeness, formality, and as in this politeness. For example, between student and teacher, we never say teacher's first name for calling. We always say teacher, for example, teacher Woohee or Mrs. Kim or Mrs. Park, or also between students and professor, we always call a professor as Professor Park or Mrs. Park, Mr. Park. We never call first name. However, in English, when students and professor has an intimate relationship with each other, students may call professors first name, like for example, or Woohee or other first name like Mary or Avery, for example. So we and Korean learners see that in English, the students just call their professor's name with their first name without any problem. So we have conflict if we can call professor's name with as this first name, if we have a intimate and close and friendly relationship. Because if we just follow the norm in English, like to call someone's first name, that Korean learners have they think that just adopting target language norms, it may not help them stay true to themselves. So they may think that if we just follow the target language norms, then it may be considered as lose their identity in the first language. So it's pretty hard, especially for newcomers or the beginning learner, because we face the truth that the difference between the target language norms and first language norms. However, someone stay longer in the target country, that the learners learn the true meaning of target language norms, and they can easily assimilate into that target language community. And second one is responding to compliments. In Korea, we always learn that when we get praised or we hear the compliments of the real good performance, Korean, they never say, I know, we never say, thank you for your compliments. But a Korean just say, no, I'm still, it's not sufficient yet, and I still need to improve more. Then others do better than me, because we consider that as a appropriate response to the compliment. So, but in English, it's just if someone does really good or do good at performance and hear the compliments, they just take it as a granted, because that's true that they do well, they do good on their performance, but not in Korean culture. So learners in research, the learners, they negotiated between the first language and target language norms to feel more comfortable. For example, they use semantic expression to negotiate those conflicting social identities. For example, if someone gives compliments, then the learner just say that, thank you, but still not enough, or thank you, but I know that you will do better, something like that. So because the Korean learners, they in Korean language learning, in Korean culture, we cannot really accept the compliment as a straightforward, because it may be considered to show off, or it may be considered as rude. So the learner always be humble. And younger learners are more flexible and open-minded, and they are interested in learning the target norms than what older learners do. So there's a research that younger learners are just, they can just say thank you for their good performance, because that's the way how English speakers do. English speakers respond to the compliments. And the last one is avoiding direct expression. Korean language speakers, they prefer indirect and implicit ways of expressing. And also Korean prefer harmony and a group culture. They don't want to be, they don't want to be unique, or they don't want to get focus on in the group. So for example, when a Korean speaker responds positively by saying yes, it does not necessarily mean a full agreement. For example, if we ask, do you have time later, then even though someone say yes, then it's not always just yes. And also in the language classroom, in English learning classroom, teacher may ask learners, do you understand? And don't you have any problem? And do you have a clear idea on your learning? And even though learners may not understand fully, they don't say no. They just say yes, because if a learner, even though they are not clear, they cannot express their way of thinking directly. And also in the classroom, Korean learners may use vague expressions or they just keep silent without direct eye contact. In Korean culture, if there is a hierarchy between the people, such as students and teacher, we may not have a direct eye contact to the teacher because it may be considered as rude in Korea. And to English speakers in the United States, for example, it may be considered as passive, shy, or indecisive, or irresponsible. However, that indirectness and implicit is the way of Korean learners thinking and the way of their expressing and speaking. So it may also cause conflict that learners just may prevent just expressing their ideas as straightforward ways. And finally, those social culture background difference in South Korea, for example, it gives a pedagogical implication to teachers because in the English learning classroom, there may be students from all different countries who has a diverse cultural background. So teachers need to be more attentive to the social cultural context. And the classroom management and teaching methods should refer to the learner's social identity and interrelationships. For example, if Korean students just keep silent and don't ask any questions in the classroom, it doesn't mean that he understands everything and he has a different idea, but the language learner is the way of the learners speaking is just different from the norms in English. So teachers need to understand learners' social cultural values and culture specific behaviors. And my suggestion is that teachers need to conduct formative assessment to monitor student learning and provide this instant feedback to the students. Because then just literally if some students say, yes, I know everything or I understand everything. However, it doesn't mean that they understand everything, and it implies that social culture behaviors of the student. And also, for example, if teacher gives a compliment for students' performance that you did an excellent job today, and if the students say no, then it doesn't mean that the students denies the compliments, but the students think that just accepting the compliments may be considered rude, or it's not the same as their social culture background. So yeah, this is the reference of my presentation. And just lastly, as a English learner and teacher at the same time, for me, my English proficiency or competence may not be as high as English speaker, but thanks to my background and my characteristics, I I become more generous among the social cultural difference in the classroom, and I would I was more focused on the students, their culture specific behavior. For example, the way of speaking and the way of the way of students' response to compliments is different in Asian countries and westernized countries. So for me, I could understand students' cultural specific behaviors better, and it helps me to comprehend and have a deeper insights for students. And thank you for listening.